again, it is Crew Call presented by Flow Racing, the home of NASCAR roots. You can subscribe and find out more information at flowracing.com/GoMRN. flowracing.com/GoMRN. Great racing there on Flow and great racing in the NASCAR world. And that's what we're going to do is breaking it all down here on Crew Call. Steve Post, pit road reporter for Motor Racing Network, joined by 25-time winning crew chief, championship winning crew chief, Todd Gordon. How are you?
I'm great. What an awesome weekend, and so much at Watkins Glen that Mother Nature interjected a little twist.
Yes. We've had a little chance to digest wet weather racing with next-gen race car. What did we learn up there at Watkins Glen with that scenario?
I actually thought that I thought NASCAR did a really good job. There was a fair amount of rain falling and water on the racetrack. They put the cars out for a pace lap and realized that needed to come back to pit road. Good call there. Lightning was our biggest delay beyond that, and that cost us darn near an hour. And but when we got back after it, the rain wasn't falling. The racetrack was wet. Threw a little bit of a hook to all these crew chiefs because as you looked at the race before you got to the race weekend, I think there were two strategies for it.
Right.
And now we've got wet tires on. We're going to have to take them off. It kind of mixed up the whole strategy. Saw the Hendrick guys kind of stick to their strategy.
They stuck to their guns.
Which I don't think was the right call.
Uh-huh.
But their cars were fast enough to cover that up.
Yeah.
When your cars are, and I'll go back. That's the old Chad Knaus strategy. Chad built race cars that were so fast, it didn't matter what he did. They just drive back to the front. So I think, there's Chad's influence. Their cars, the 5 and 9 were the class of field when we got to the dries. Really interesting to see the wet weather and who could prevail in that. Michael McDowell drove out to an 11-second lead over the Hendrick cars. So it was a cool race.
We asked in the post race Michael McDowell, what more did you need? He said rain. Rain, I could equalize the Hendrick cars in the rain and the dry. We couldn't equalize them. It's funny you mentioned that. I have my notes. Strategy, fastest car, number 9, Alan Gustafson, Chase Elliott. They just had the strength enough so that they could stick to their lap 17 pit and then split the rest of the race, and that played right into their hands. Obviously, late restarts, you can't factor those in, but that was the strategy, for them with the winning strategy with those cars.
Yeah, and I don't think it was a winning strategy. I think just having speed was a winning
strategy.
The
speed was a winning strategy.
Because if you looked at it, Michael McDowell, McDowell in the 34, he was great in the wet.
Yeah.
They came and put tires on about lap 10.
10-ish, yeah.
I think. They were 6 seconds a lap, 6 to 7 seconds a lap faster than the Hendrick cars. He put tires on at 10, and then all the Hendrick cars came at 17.
Right.
Just before the pit road closed.
Yeah.
He came and did fuel only at that point. McDowell restarted 4th.
Oh, yeah.
The best Hendrick car was like 20th.
So he actually had a better strategy.
From a strategy standpoint, the 34 called a better race than the 5 or the 9 did. The 5 and the 9 were just exceptional and recovered from it. And I think it just speaks for how good their road course program is over there.
Yeah, no doubt about it. The road course program is phenomenal. It really, truly is. One of the questions going into it with the wet weather was the electronic systems. We had a helmet. Well, it was a radio failure, I guess, talking to some of the folks at RE. It was a radio failure, and we don't even know that it was, at the time I talked to the guys from RE, we're not even sure there was moisture related, sometimes radios, but Chase Elliott's crew, they're changing out helmets, they're swapping everything because there's rain coming down in the cockpits of the car, so you're automatically. The only other thing that I heard about it is Denny Hamlin at one time was talking to Chris Gabehart and said there's a lot of moisture in these cars. There was not a problem, but there was a lot of moisture in these cars. I think this is part of the learned process with the new race car as to how we seal these things up.
Yeah, definitely. I think they, there's an opening in the front windshield. It's a duct, an air vent duct. That's plugged, and that was part of the race changes. But there's still slots in the rear window.
Right.
They're 1-inch wide slots that I think there's 5 of them across the top of the rear window. That's an aerodynamic change that they did to kind of cool the insides of these cars, but that's got to let some water in. I remember the first time that we went to Montreal back in, I don't know, it was probably 07. And Jason Keller was driving for me at the time, and he talked about the wave that ran up the right side, up under the dash, and it just, because there was standing water from the windows being open.
Yeah.
And it's just, it was amazing. We've gotten a lot better with a side window that helps some of that from the right side, but you still have the driver's side window that has a window net that's open to it, and the slots in the rear glass. So there is water that gets in. To the radio pieces, most of these guys relocate the radios to the center of the car
Yeah.
for road courses because you're turning right. You want weight as far
Weight
right as you
again,
can.
yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's in a better place. But overall, we really didn't hear a lot of
Nope.
issues out of it.
Nope.
I think the next-gen car, I thought, did a really good job. I thought the tire that Goodyear's now got on these cars, it's a different tread design. It didn't make as much spray. I think part of that's the mud flaps behind
the
it
mud
and the way
flaps
the
there
car
too, yeah.
works. But
Mhm.
overall, I thought it was a good race.
Yeah. Yeah, and then once we got into racing, we had just good road racing, good strategy racing, and ultimately when we went to the last restart, the fastest 2 cars were on the front row.
Yes. Yeah.
And that's what happens.
And honestly, a shout out to Colleague Racing.
Yeah, no doubt.
I mean, AJ got spun on lap 1 and still, I mean, really they didn't strategize their way in that
No.
position. They just raced their way forward all day long and got themselves to where they could be P3. Actually, I've looked at this a little differently, but there's that whole discussion between what Kyle Larson did and
Right, yeah,
on the
sure.
last restart. I blame some of that on AJ Allmendinger.
Mhm.
And I don't mean that AJ's fault. I think AJ influences that decision
Yeah.
because AJ actually engaged Kyle and pushed him to get him the run down into turn 1, but then he made a move out in the mirror. And that move out is, I mean, if Kyle kind of tiptoes his way into that corner, AJ buries him 3 wide and puts both of them out in the
Yeah.
weeds. So Kyle had to go deeper because of who he had behind him. And I thought it's just really a great race.
Restarts at the end of the stage. The one before that, somebody, I was down in turn 1, somebody got into McDowell and he got pinched a little sideways and then the car shot the other way. And I thought we were going to, I thought that's where McDowell went from 3rd to like 6th.
Yep.
I thought we were just going to wholesale a whole bunch of them down there. Because McDowell did a great job saving that car. That he got hit because someone dove out of line, and then as Michael came down in, they made just light contact, and that upset McDowell's car. And so you have the aggressive. That was the restart before the one that impacted the front of the race. But you're right, because you've got to know that. How does AJ Allmendinger win so many road course races? By outbraking people down into corners.
Yes. And if I'm Kyle Larson, I know AJ's behind me.
Absolutely.
I can't. I've got to blow it down,
down
in
in
the
that corner because
it's just and really, my perception, Chase didn't think all the way through that one because Chase put Kyle in a situation. I mean, left lane was preferred,
no doubt,
until you get to the last restart when you got to use somebody up a little bit,
right?
And especially when you thought about AJ being in 3rd.
Yeah,
he was 2nd row inside lane in a great position to bail it off 3 wide and put both of you guys out in the weeds, turn on around and take the checkered flag.
Man,
so
I'll tell you what,
it's I think everybody sees the front row,
right?
But there's an influence of AJ
the next
in
row,
3rd.
AJ in there too. That's a good point. That's a really good point, and because he's coming.
Yes,
and he is an outbreaking son of a gun. He is so good at that.
Not a dirty one.
No.
He just gets everything he can down in a braking zone. And so you've got to match his intensity in that respect.
The post race of the Xfinity Series was again Kyle Larson and AJ, and AJ's post race was Kyle Larson is the most badass race car driver on the planet right now. He always has raced me clean, so I'm going to race him clean. Which we knew again Sunday he was going to race him clean. Racing him clean and outbreaking into a corner are 2 different things.
No, they're the same thing.
Well, yes,
racing him dirty and outbreaking him in the corner are 2 different things. So.
Exactly, they're the same thing. You're right. Fascinating stuff. It really is, and it sets us up. Kyle Larson. I'm literally in the last 2 laps while he's leading around there. I'm kind of going back through. When did he win again? I'm going up my
been a while.
Club. It's been a while since he's won a race.
Yep.
But here he is, swept the weekend and feeling good. That's for sure. So that will wrap up Watkins Glen. So what we're going to do is we're going to come back. We're going to preview Daytona coming up here because we've got a lot to preview.
There's a lot there.
There's a lot there. So we are going to step away and we will preview Daytona. Before we do that, though, I want to remind you that you can subscribe to Flow Racing, the new home of NASCAR Roots. You can catch the Wheel and Modifieds, ARCA Menard Series, Pinty Series, NASCAR Weekly Racing Series as well. Subscribe today for over 1,300 racing events live and on demand. The headliners this week, Saturday, NASCAR Pinty Series is at Circuit iCar, and Sunday, the ARCA Menard Series is up at the Milwaukee Mile. Weekly racing, Autodrome Granby, Riverhead, Jennerstown, Hickory, Berlin, and Meridian out in Idaho. So going to be good stuff, that's for sure. You can subscribe and find out more information at flowracing.com/GoMRN. That's flowracing.com/GoMRN. A Daytona preview coming up next. Welcome back. It is Crew Call presented by Flow Racing. Todd Gordon and Steve Post breaking it down, and we are headed to Daytona, which first and foremost, Todd, where in the wide world of sports did the season go? We're headed to Daytona, and they've moved Daytona back to August.
Yes.
And we're headed to Daytona.
Yeah.
I mean, wow.
Final regular season race. And I mean, we've been building through this. I think there's been so much going on. There's been so much anticipation of the next week that we've been so caught up in week to week, we haven't realized how far down the road we've gotten. I think what a great year of racing we've had, and what a great event we've got coming up. You look at it, we've got 15 winners. They're going to the playoffs. Yes. We got one spot left. We've got third place in points and sixth place in points racing for a points battle.
Right.
And we've got how many previous Speedway winners we got outside of that?
Outside of Ryan Blaney and Martin Truex, 9 Speedway winners.
And to look at them, I mean, I can make an argument for all 9.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's talk a little bit about Blaney and Martin Truex Jr. 25 points. At Daytona, 25. You can swing 25 points because of a crash.
Yes.
And so to me, it's almost like Blaney's in the weirdest spot of anybody here. He's in the weirdest spot of anybody here because
he needs to finish, but he may need to win.
Correct.
And the mentality for those two strategies of I just need to finish and I need to win are polar opposites.
Yeah.
They're just you've got a situation where you just want to play a little defense and put yourself not in bad risky positions, but the guy that's got to win, he's got to be up front all day long. It's
because Ryan Truex can finish second in this race and not transfer on. Because if one of those 9 other
Martin
drivers, Ryan Blaney can finish second in the race. He's got to finish and he's got to win.
Yes, he could if he finishes second
to one of those other 9 drivers.
Any of the really 10 drivers. I mean, Martin and
that's right.
Add Martin into it.
Yeah,
I'll go on record. I think Martin's point. If Martin makes it in, it's because Blaney exited and he beat him in points. Martin's great at a lot of places. I don't see him being a Speedway winner.
He hasn't won at a Speedway yet.
And I mean, some of that has to do with what you have to do to win at the end of Speedway races. Martin races a little cleaner than that.
Yeah.
That's
a good quality to have, except for when it comes to winning Speedway races.
Except when it comes to when you got to win one of these races.
You've got to be a real taker.
And he may prove me wrong. Hope he does. But I just don't see that happening. But
where it gets interesting is where Truex gets into a weird spot is if Blaney is in an early crash, then Truex has got to try to scramble to get those 25 points and make sure that he doesn't get shuffled out to lose those points.
Yeah.
And then there's the 9 drivers beyond Blaney. Blaney is the 10th driver, actually, that are not locked in that has won. Okay. Blaney is the defending race winner, a 2-time Talladega winner. Eric Jones, 2018 Daytona 400 winner. Eric Almirola, 2014, he won the 400 at Daytona. 2018, he won at Talladega. Austin Dillon, 2018 Daytona 500 champion. Bubba Wallace, 2021 Talladega winner. Chris Buescher, winner this year of one of the dual races down at Daytona.
Yep.
Justin Haley, 2019 Daytona 400 winner. Michael McDowell, 2021 Daytona 500 winner. Ricky Stenhouse Jr., 2017, he won Daytona and Talladega.
Yep.
Brad Keselowski, he won a duel earlier this year. He won in 2016 in the 400 at Daytona, and he is a 6-time Talladega winner.
First Cup win came at Talladega.
Yes.
Speedway race.
Yeah, a Speedway race. Are any of those, when we come in here next week, if any of those drivers win, we are not going to be shocked at all.
Not at all. Not at all. I actually made the prediction before the season started on my Monday night show on Sirius, but I felt Brad Keselowski would have a win this year. It'd be a Speedway. You still could be right. RFK actually has been one of the stronger Ford programs in speedway racing as far as car stuff.
Yeah.
I don't feel like their teams have been capable to execute. Chris Buescher's run pretty well.
Yeah.
But putting Brad, who's a multi-time winner, who can elevate when he needs to. I've been around Brad in Team Penske.
Yeah.
This kid, well, he's younger than me, so he's still a kid. When there's a cherry hanging out there that nobody's gotten or he needs to be gotten, there's a whole nother level for Brad Keselowski.
Yeah, put me in coach.
Oh my, he will elevate to go get what he needs to get. And I still think he's going to be a big contender this weekend. The biggest caveat I think we've got, what wrecks happen. Because these cars have pretty round bumpers front and back, and we saw that earlier in the season.
Right.
You know, Brad won one of the duels, Chris Buescher won the other. So the RFK cars had speed then.
Yeah.
And but you also saw Brad getting caught up in a couple of incidents there in the 500.
Right. So this race car surviving to get to the finish so that you can put on that winning mode. Driver, spotter, the design of the car. What types of things do you look for to get to that point where you can contend for the win?
I mean, won this race last year with Ryan.
That's right. So
I've won a few speedway races between Ryan and Joey. I always focused on having stability in my race car.
Okay.
I always wanted to be able to take the push. I felt like the Hendrick cars were great at qualifying. If you go years prior, right? You go well
Sure.
up until this year. I would say the Hendrick cars had a lot of speed at and I'm not picking it anyway, but they had a lot of speed at speedway races, but they wouldn't take pushes well.
Okay.
And they'd end up getting wrecked.
Right.
A lot of them. I always worked on our cars being able to take pushes well. I maybe gave up a little bit of speed, but I felt like I wanted to race well. And the end of these races comes from pushing. You've got to be able to block runs. You've got to be able to take the push when you make the block. So we focused on that. My teams did, and it seemed to work out. It'd be interesting to see where that works out here. I mean, it's still a different car than what we had, but you still got to have some stability in the race car to try to make those, to be able to make the moves in the blocks that we'll see happen in the last two laps. Because to your point, we haven't even talked about the guys that are playoff eligible that won't go on to get 5 more bonus points.
Right.
We've talked about 11 guys that really direly want to win this race,
Right.
and there's another 15 of them that
they're all pretty capable and successful race car drivers.
5 bonus points is a big deal.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
This could be a shootout amongst 25 cars.
So when you do this battle, and we've had Daytona, we've had Talladega, and we've had Atlanta, which I'm not even sure how we're. I think we're still incomplete on Atlanta, how it applies to all of this. I agree. I don't know what
it's
that
almost
means.
a speedway race.
Yes, it's almost a speedway race. Exactly. This race car, the rounded bumpers, I think that's a factor as well. So we get into that. One of the key factors, and you and I talked before the air, is the spotter.
Yes.
And the spotter-driver relationship, how critical that is.
Oh, it's huge. It's huge. I feel like there's a handful of spotters up there that are elite. And the relationship between them and their driver is elite. And you got to, with where these cars are today in speedway racing, that spotter, I mean, if they ever release their button, there's something wrong. They've got to be talking and giving information to the driver the whole time. I would get to the point that the only conversation I would have with my driver would be through my spotter on a second radio into my spotter's ear so he could transfer it. Because I'd never want him to lift off the button and quit telling the information what's going on. The runs that happen so quickly and they happen so deep. You've got to see it happen in 4, 5, 6, 8 rows back. The momentum building and knowing where you want to go, and it's it's information overload. The drivers that can take that amount of information,
right,
and have a spotter up on top of the roof that can give it. I've been around some great ones. I feel like
So 8 cars back, there's some heat generating, there's some momentum generating. You've got to be looking at that, not that guy behind you.
Right, because if you're in a position, you've got to figure out what lane to get into before that run gets to you.
To be in front of it.
It's like driving down the highway, right? You want to jump into the lane just when it starts to go. You don't. Lane's passing, you don't want to jump in, it stops. Right. That's going the wrong way. I mean, we've all done that on the interstate, right?
All the time.
So you want that spotter to see, hey, that lane's about to start going forward. So even if it's backing up a little bit, we might want to jump into it. and then the momentum of that comes behind you and pushes you forward. So there's an art to seeing the runs in speedway racing, and there's a few guys. There's 5 or 6 guys that I think
Spotters that are
really are good at that.
And then that with the combination of driver and then driver applying it with the steering wheel, the gas, and the brake is what.
Yeah, driver's got to have bandwidth to be able to process all that information, and there has to be some trust. There has to be like, I trust my life with you. That you say go to the top. That you don't look, because if a driver looks at his mirrors when the spotter says go to the top, the hole's gone.
Well, that's the problem. You've got to be so precise.
You've got to be blind faith in that spotter to say, if he says go to the top, turn the wheel right. Like it's a unique, different form of racing. And to your point earlier about Atlanta not knowing where it is, the biggest thing about Atlanta that separates it from Daytona and Talladega is the straightaways aren't long enough.
Right.
It being that mile shorter, that mile is all in the straightaways. So there's not as much room for the bump drafting, for the runs to build and to use that. You're leaving the corner, you're getting to the corner. And these cars can't push through the corners with how round the bumpers are. So that's what kind of is a caveat for Atlanta. I look for guys to be tandem up and pushing down the straightaways here.
Yeah, because we have straightaways. We have longer straightaways, that's for sure. So, no, neat stuff. There is a lot to process. Mentioned on that list, Justin Haley, 2019 400 winner. And you could say, well, it was a rain-shortened race. Well, you know what the forecast is for Saturday night?
Yeah, Mother Nature might make an appearance again.
Daytona in August.
Yes.
Okay, so we generally get late afternoon or early evening thunderstorms. What happens if a thunderstorm rolls in there at 9:30?
Yeah. And the other piece is, I mean, Colleague Racing and the Xfinity Series has been pretty dominant on speedway stuff.
Man, they're so good.
They've run pretty well, and Haley's run pretty well, even at speedways while he's been on this program. So, I mean, I could go down through that list you gave,
right?
And I could argue every one of them having a legitimate shot this weekend.
I agree.
It's from the run that the 43s had speed right along. Eric Almirola, I mean, we've seen Stuart Haas, the 4-car, come back. They've been great at speedways in the past. The Ford Working Together program. We'll see where those are pieces too.
How they all get along with that.
And who gets to lead, right?
Yeah.
Because you've got multiple out of every manufacturer that need to get in. So it's you tune in Saturday night, guys.
That's right. Motor Racing Network, we're going to have it. Yeah, because you look at Ford. Ford has done really well at working together. Well, that's really, really good unless you're Brad Keselowski, Chris Buescher, Michael McDowell, or Eric Almirola.
Or Ryan Blaney.
Because you
which one of you gets to lead?
Which one? Because all 5 want to be first. Have to be first. I mean, good God almighty, are we in for a treat? Holy cow. Tune in Saturday night to Motor Racing Network. We are going to have a dandy. That is for sure. It is the Coke Zero Sugar 400. We're going to step away. We're going to come back, and we're going to do a little sneak peek. What do we all think is going to happen with the playoffs here? So stay with us. More Crew Call in just a moment. Welcome back. It is Crew Call presented by Flow Racing, the home of NASCAR roots. Lots of racing action. You can go to flowracing.com/GoMRN. You can check that out. That is for sure. Todd Gordon and Steve Post here. So, Todd, we locked the 16th driver in, and we'll see who that is. Stay tuned. Motor Racing Network will be there Saturday night. When you look at the playoffs, what's your sense right now when we look at the 10-race playoffs on where we're at and who's favored? Maybe.
Yeah.
I don't even know that I can pull that out. Who's favored? Because I'm not sure how we determine that.
I don't know. As much inconsistency as we've seen through the year, I would wonder. I mean, Chase Elliott's going to have a decent points buffer with the regular season points.
He won that.
You know, I think by the time you get all done, he's going to have a decent playoff point advantage going into each round. So I could make the argument. I think Chase makes it to the Final Four.
Right.
But we'll see where that goes.
Yeah.
And you could talk through, like, is Chase the best driver at Hendrick?
Well, I don't know.
I could make an argument. I think that Kyle Larson is under the radar at this point. Won this weekend. Chase was winning. But I think we've seen a little bit of a lull out of the 5, but that lull I think kind of correlates with Cliff Daniels being suspended for 4 races for a tire getting away at Sonoma.
That's right. So
So
Cliff was on the shelf, and so we didn't see the performance.
So we didn't see the performance. I think since he's been back, we've seen the 5 back up there. I don't know which one I put my money on. I think right now I'd say Chase because he's got a bigger playoff points advantage.
The point advantage, the playoff
Which I think is part of why Kyle needed to make the move he did.
to get
At Watkins Glen,
a little
right?
bit back. Okay.
Yeah.
All season long, well, not all season long, up until about a month ago, we talked about the only driver that was consistently in the top 5, top 10 all the time was Ross Chastain. The wheels have kind of fallen off from that program as well.
I would say he's the second best car in his organization right now.
He's the second best car at
Trackhouse Racing.
Trackhouse Racing. You have right now Daniel Suarez.
Daniel Suarez, if you go back like 6 weeks, we were talking about if we had 17, Daniel might have been one. He was in the talk of cars that could have been eliminated with a win. He's 12th in points.
Yeah.
They have put together race after race after race. Early in the season, they both had speed. Daniel's team didn't execute. Whether it be pit road issues, whether it be, just call issues, whether it be making mistakes, being a victim of. I mean, they went to Coda. They were the best car there.
That's right.
As they were driving back up through, they got wrecked. So they've had speed. They've cleaned up the execution. Travis Mack and him are on a line that their trajectory is headed the right direction, and I believe in momentum. I totally believe in momentum, and right now I feel like theirs is definitely in the right direction. And I mean, not that Ross and Phil can't figure things out and turn that around. They're great. They've had speed all year, but their trajectory and their momentum's not in the right direction right now.
Speaking of momentum, Kevin Harvick.
Oh my goodness! And who would ever count? Kevin Harvick back-to-back wins. Rodney Childers, him. I wouldn't ever count them out.
And we start at Darlington.
Oh,
We start at Darlington.
I remember Kevin being in a position he had to win Dover to transfer.
Right.
He waxed us.
Yeah.
I mean, we all knew it. He still waxed us.
Yeah.
It's just like another one, like I talked about Brad earlier. You put Kevin in a must-win situation, there's a whole nother. Not that he doesn't give 100% all the time, but there's another gear for him.
Another gear, another level.
Him and Rodney. I'll say that whole team. I won't give it just all.
You've been really good. They've gone from they're getting their act together, and we talked about this I think 2 weeks ago. Part of getting their act together is executing now, and they are executing these races to a T.
Yes.
Whether it's strategy or pit calls, they're bringing fast cars to the racetrack, and that guy behind the wheel can you give him a fighting chance at the end, and he's going to take it to the house.
Yeah, and he and Rodney have kind of gotten to the point that they've got their hands around what they need to start focusing on for this car.
Yeah.
And I feel like you listen to them, and they talk about going back to Nashville. And the reason they keep talking about that is Nashville was the last racetrack we actually got regular practice at before you went through qualifying. So they could make changes that they couldn't make on a regular race weekend. The limited, and I'm not complaining about it. I think it's great for racing, but the limited practice after inspection going straight into qualifying, you can't change shocks or you can't change springs. You can adjust on the shocks. They're the same anyway, but you can't change geometries. You can make crossweight changes. You can make travel changes, but there's a lot of things you're stuck with, and they need an opportunity to go test some things to see what woke the car up for Kevin. And I think they found that.
It at Nashville,
and we saw that. I mean, they went to Sonoma. They were in the hunt.
Right. They had a miscue on pit road. They were good. Yeah.
And I feel like since that point that they've been in that top 5, top 10 range that I expect them to be in, and they just executed their way into where they are now. I would not bet against them. I think they're in a great position.
You put that duo in the top 5, and gosh, that's a great combination. Where in the wide world of sports is Joe Gibbs Racing on this playoff run?
That's a great question.
And I don't know because the speed that Denny Hamlin has, and again, Darlington's the first race.
If Denny's team cleans up execution, they're to the Final Four.
Yeah.
Their speed is, I mean, of the JGR cars, Chris Gapart and Denny Hamlin are the fastest.
Right.
I feel very strongly about that they are the fastest.
You look at some of the recoveries from their missteps when they restart 26.
Had to go to the tail at Michigan on the last green flag run, ran to third.
Yeah.
from 23rd at Michigan.
Yeah. You
I
look
mean,
at how fast that car
the
is.
speed they've had in their cars, but they've had miscues on the money stops.
Right.
I mean, he really should have won. He really should have won Michigan and Richmond.
That's right.
Kevin Harvick should be blocked out of this.
Right.
If Denny Hamlin's pit crew performs adequately
Right.
at those two races,
Yeah.
he's a 4-time winner, not a 2-time.
Fascinating stuff.
And so
Yeah.
they've got it's fixable, and I'm sure Chris is working on it. But as you look at it, I mean, we'll see where Martin gets to this weekend.
Right. Martin's still on the fence there.
But he's not been like the Martin we know.
No.
Um,
Christopher Bell has some moments.
I would say if I looked at it right now, I'd say Denny, Christopher, Kyle, Martin.
Yeah. Just in that.
And
yeah.
Kyle's had speed at times. They just have dumb luck.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah, boy,
and
they have had some dumb luck.
and
there.
execution issues.
Yeah.
On all sides.
Right.
But they've had speed. It's
Yep.
just, and that's another one. You get him turned around and get him.
Yeah, that's another. Put me in coach guy. He's another. Put me in.
There's
coach
about
guy.
5 of them out there.
Yeah.
We've talked about 3 of them so far.
Yeah, no doubt about it. When you look at some of the other organizations, Team Penske, your former team,
Yeah.
kind of assess. I almost can make the claim for the guy that's not locked in as much as I can make the claim for anybody else at this point.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which is fascinating.
Yeah. It's interesting to me. I'm a little concerned about Austin.
Right.
I just don't. And this is rookie blues.
Yeah,
I mean,
welcome to the
Cup
the
Series.
deep end. Yeah.
I think they've done a great job in doing what they've done this year.
Right. I do too.
But I don't know how deep they go. He may surprise me. He's a great student of the sport, so we'll see where that goes. I think Ryan and Jonathan Hassler is crew chief. I think their relationship's pretty good. I think they've had speed at times. I think early in the season they had some execution issues. They've kind of revamped a little bit of the pit crew stuff to kind of fix those. I don't think they've had as much speed relative since then. I don't think that's correlated. I just think there's ebbs and flows of things coming and going. If he gets in there, I think he could make waves and make his way into it. Because I mean, he's third in points. Right. He's performed. He's been a top 5 guy, just not with the wins. So, and I think in a lot of ways you can point your way through several rounds of this playoff.
And if that's the case, yeah, you're third.
I think they're in a good spot. I do think that Joey and Paul have shown they've built that momentum, and he's another one. I won a championship with him. When it comes time, he's really good. So, I don't know who I would say is in a better position right now.
It's interesting. That's a fascinating. Well, there's a lot of them that you can. There's
the whole field, right?
Yeah,
the whole field's that way. But
yeah, because then you throw in like a Tyler Reddick. Where does Tyler Reddick fit in this thing? There's been times he's looked like Superman.
It'll make things really good for Tyler. Caveat out there. Austin Dillon could win this weekend, and I'll eat all these. But if Tyler's the only playoff car, the whole organization focuses down his path.
Right.
I felt like, and I'll go back to 2018. Part of what won us a championship in 2018 was there were 2 or 3 things.
Sure.
But part of it, obviously, winning at Martinsville was a big deal because that gave us a couple weeks. But none of our teammates were in it.
So all the focus.
As soon as we won Martinsville, everything in the shop turned to Homestead for us.
Right.
Where if I'm racing and I've got 2 teammates that are still trying to get into Homestead, the shop focus goes to turning those 2 teammates into Homestead guys, not into what we do at Homestead.
Right.
So we got 3 weeks to work on Homestead. Yeah. Where if you've got multiple cars in the final round, the third round, you're trying to get those cars to Homestead. Yeah. So the focus becomes a little different.
It's an energy shift. Yeah.
And I think this way, if it's just the 8 car, then the whole RCR camp is behind what do we need to do to get the 8 car forward.
Yep.
So there's a benefit to being the only guy out of your organization moving on.
Right. Absolutely. Stewart Haas Racing. We've got Kevin Harvick and Chase Briscoe got in on Phoenix. I think there's one of those organizations you can probably say maybe we can determine who probably has the upper hand there on it, and it's just that experience with Kevin and Rodney.
Yes.
Chase Briscoe's having a great year, but he's new. He's a kid here.
Yes. He has speed. He just.
Yeah, there's times
putting the whole races together.
The whole race together.
Did a great job at Phoenix. I was astounded.
Yeah.
I thought he'd get used up. He drove a heck of a race there.
Doing it 10, you've got to do it and do it and do it and do it again.
Yep,
that's the whole thing.
Yep.
So, Man.
I would say with the momentum the 4 cars got right now, there's the 4 cars the leader in that
Yeah.
camp. And again, I may be proven wrong, but that's where
Yep.
I'd say we're at.
Good times. See what happens with it. It is going to be fascinating. that's for
We've
sure.
got 11 weeks of spectacular racing coming up.
I know, we really do.
And to look at where the playoff grid goes, starting off with Darlington.
With Darlington. Whoever created Darlington as the first race, give him a raise or give him an attaboy or
Yes.
buy him a cup of coffee. Because
Yes.
Darlington, this is right here. It's such a great racetrack. And
Yeah.
it's just what a way to kick off our playoffs.
And
I know we're a week ahead of ourselves. We're
and
still going to Daytona, but
and
still.
the cutoff race for the first round is
Oh,
Bristol.
Bristol.
Night race.
Bristol
I mean,
night race.
iconic. I would argue Bristol night race is one of the crown jewels.
Sure.
That I always, that was pretty special to me.
Yeah.
Winning there
Neat
is a
stuff.
pretty big deal. So
Neat stuff.
I look forward to what we've got. And this weekend we've got 25 guys that all have a reason to win
Right.
at
Whether
Daytona.
it's 5 bonus points or survival.
Or eliminating somebody
or eliminating
else.
somebody else.
I mean, if Joey's racing Martin Truex at the end, Joey's got double the reasons to win, right?
Yep.
A Penske reason and a Joey reason.
And a Joey reason.
It's just, and likewise, I mean,
Yeah.
we'll see where it all goes. It's going to be
Yeah.
fun to. It's going to be fun to talk about and to hear on MRN.
Really, truly is. That is for sure. Motor Racing Network coverage from Daytona. 5 o'clock Friday, NASCAR Cup Series qualifying. 7 o'clock on Friday night, it's the Wawa 250, powered by Coca-Cola for the NASCAR Xfinity Series. And on Saturday, 6 p.m. Eastern Time, the Coke Zero 400 for the NASCAR Cup Series. And it is going to be a spectacular weekend. So, Todd, we didn't get I'll just be honest and pull back the curtain a little bit. The organizational test this week at Martinsville just made our poor producer Julian tear his hair out trying to find us a guest. This is why we have our own crew chief, because we had a great chance today to break it all down and kind of set ourselves up for this weekend.
Yeah, really excited to share some of what I see and where we've been and where we're going. It's going to be what a great playoff run we're setting up for.
Yeah,
and
we really truly are.
It'll be great this weekend to see who. It's a true bona fide 10 guys racing for one spot.
Man, that just
It's not
good.
2, it's 10.
Yeah, that just sounds good.
And it won't be. The great part about speedway racing is 5 to go. You don't know which. I mean, if those 10 are in the top 20, they got a shot.
Yeah.
We'll see where it goes.
Man, going to be good, that's for sure. Motor Racing Network has live coverage 6 p.m. on Saturday night. We're so glad that you have spent some time checking us out here on Crew Call. We would ask that you like, review, and share this wherever the podcast platform you are listening to or watching us on YouTube. You can like, share, and review, and spread the gospel. If you like what you have on Crew Call, that's kind of the way here in 2022 that the cool kids are promoting podcasts. So we really would appreciate if you would do that. So we are off to the World Center of Racing, Daytona International Speedway, coming up this weekend. So he's Todd Gordon, I'm Steve Post, and we appreciate you joining us here on Crew Call, presented by Flow Racing, the ultimate digital home track for race fans everywhere, whether it's dirt, asphalt, drag racing, off-road. You can find it at flowracing.com.